Of course, the shocking news that I guess we shouldn't be shocked by now that Donald Trump is cutting aid to Ukraine and justifying it based on facts he's been saying for the past week that just aren't true. Europe, as you said, Europe has given more money to Ukraine than the United States has. We haven't given $350 billion. It's been half of that. Zelensky has not been an ingrate. Willie, yesterday we played a clip where he said thank you more than Andrew Gold and thank you for being a friend. I want to thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I thank the American people. I mean, seriously, somebody should actually do a dance version of Andrew Gold and Zelensky saying thank you, because it would be like about a 10-minute dance mix. So, again, they cut off funding for a country invaded by Russia, and they're blaming it on him being an ingrate and not wearing a suit. I would say some people, Dr. Brzezinski, to Ronald Reagan, to Harry Truman, would be shocked at the state of affairs. But I think it's important today that we dig into why. Of course, there have been a lot of conspiracy theories, and there's always been a question hovering over Donald Trump's relationship with Vladimir Putin and how far back it goes and how far back it goes with Russia. And when he visited the former Soviet Union in 1987, we don't know what it is. It may be a lot more simple than that. He may just be beating down and trying to berate Zelensky to get him to the table to talk peace. But, of course, then the real obstacle is Vladimir Putin, who does not want peace. He wants to reconstitute the Soviet empire. So if this is Donald Trump's art of the deal, because somebody close to him called me yesterday saying, listen, I think everybody's got this wrong. Barack Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize. Donald Trump wants a Nobel Peace Prize for ending this war. And he thinks this is the way he does it. The why, though, doesn't really matter. It's the what that matters. And what is happening is we are abandoning an ally, a friend, a democracy against Russian aggression. And it's just frightening.
As Europe rallies to its aid, to its side, gathers in London over the last day or two to support Zelensky and to support Ukraine. And you can add all this, Joe, together, and Putin cannot believe his luck. There's a reason he preferred Donald Trump in 2016 and this time. But talking about halting offensive cyber attacks on Russia from the Defense Department, a talk about easing the sanctions on Russia, as you say. Why? Why is he tilting so hard in the direction of Vladimir Putin right now? Two U.S. officials tell NBC News this morning the Trump administration is, in fact, pausing military aid to Ukraine. This follows Friday's tense Oval Office meeting between President Trump, Vice President Vance, and Ukrainian President Zelensky. The White House says the pause is to ensure aid contributes to finding a peaceful solution to the war. The news comes as President Zelensky says he is working with American and European partners on a path to peace. Zelensky made the comment on social media yesterday, just days after that contentious meeting with President Trump. He also said he's ready to open up Ukraine's minerals to U.S. investment. Yesterday, President Trump signaled that deal is not dead, but he continued to criticize the Ukrainian leader, specifically calling out Zelensky's comment to the Associated Press that a deal to end the war is, quote, very, very far away.
Now, President Zelensky supposedly made a statement today in AP. I'm not a big fan of AP, so maybe it was an incorrect statement, but he said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. I think everybody has to get into a room, so to speak, and we have to make a deal. And the deal can be made very fast. It should not be that hard a deal to make. It could be made very fast. Now, maybe somebody doesn't want to make a deal. And if somebody doesn't want to make a deal, I think that person won't be around very long. That person will not be listened to very long. because I believe that Russia wants to make a deal. I believe certainly the people of Ukraine want to make a deal. They've suffered more than anybody else. We talk about suffering. They've suffered.
Well, Jonathan Lemire, that may be news. If Russia wants to make a deal, that's something that the Trump administration itself over the weekend said they don't know if Putin wants to make a deal. Marco Rubio doesn't know if Putin wants to make a deal. Most people, most observers who see this say Putin does not want to make a deal. So, okay, you're going to get everybody around a table and going to try to make a deal. Fantastic. But the idea that you bloody and rhetorically beat up your side to get them to the table without even knowing if Vladimir Putin wants to make a deal. When people in Donald Trump's own administration said this weekend they weren't sure if Putin even wanted to make a deal. It seems like quite an interesting way to go about it.
Yeah, the negotiations puzzling to many. Zelensky, of course, wants peace. He has said that he'd like to regain the territory seized by Russia. There's many in Kyiv recognize that won't be entirely possible. But this is his country 3 years now, continues to be bombarded. Even amid the last few days in the aftershocks of what happened in the Oval Office on Friday, Russia continues its attacks on Ukraine. And let's put a fine point on this. Trump's decision yesterday to halt aid, it's about $1 billion worth of arms and ammunition in the pipeline and on order, arms that Ukraine desperately needs to front. And what this pause does, let's think about this for a second. It benefits Putin in so many ways. First of all, this just, of course, these arms aren't going to be in the battlefield. That will allow Russian troops there to take advantage, potentially to press forward. This is largely a frozen conflict, but Russia has made slow, very slow, grinding gains over the last year or so, in part just because of its manpower advantages and the drone strikes that it's been using. But this might allow them to press the advantage. This might not spur Russia to the negotiating table. It might do the exact opposite here, where if he thinks this fight between Trump and Zelensky could keep these American arms on the sidelines, why not keep going? Why, Caddy K, why would Putin suddenly realize I should come to the table when I'm getting everything I want here? Yes, we know the Russian economy is weak. We know he's suffered huge losses. But it's also his war machine, just in terms of pure numbers, dwarfs what Ukraine can do. This would seem to be an incentive for him to keep going right now and not bring this conflict to an end.
Yeah, if you look at the actions of the White House over the last few days, including, of course, the decision not to continue with cyber offensive attacks against China, against Russia, then you might think that the White House was actually trying to put Russia in as good a position as possible going into these negotiations. It's hard to see how the White House could have done much to improve Russia's chances at the moment. This cut in aid coming after such a dramatic few days in Russia-Ukraine-American relations. But actually, if you just combine that and pull back for a second with what Donald Trump did to Ukraine last night, with overnight imposing tariffs on America's closest allies, the strategy from the White House seems to be to shed as many friends as possible as fast as possible. And the long-term question is, does that leave America safer, stronger and greater, or does it leave it weaker? I mean, if you just look, the risk at the moment is you push the Europeans closer to China, you push the Canadians closer to China, you push the South Koreans closer to a nuclear weapon. I mean, it's hard to see how this strategy plays out well for the United States in the long run.
It's hard to see how it plays out well in the short run as well. I mean, I think what the Trump people would say is that if you caught them in private moments, is that friendship and economic deals between the US and Russia, between Trump and Putin, will unleash all kinds of animal spirits and energy deals. And of course, the deal for Ukrainian minerals, which presumably in one form or another, Zelensky will be corralled into accepting. That's going to be boom time for American businesses. His view of the world is about deals. It's also about an affinity with Putin. I'm not overlooking that, but it's chiefly if you want to summarize Trump's view of economics, it's about having lots of deals and punishing those who are in surplus with the United States. There are no friends in that world. There's just deals that Trump has skin in the game in. And so that's how they would justify this as a success, because there is no sort of ethical, philosophical or strategic justification for what he's doing.